Hello, I think, yep, looks like we're live. Hello, Dorothy Watt again, Transformational Homeopath and Holistic Wellness Advocate. And today we are going to be talking about supporting sore skin. Now, homeopaths really like to see skin issues themselves, particularly if they're things that have gone on for a long time, which they often are. So if we've got things like eczema or psoriasis or long-standing acne or any of these things to do with skin, or urticaria which comes and has lasted for ages and ages, it's really best to go and see a professional homeopath for one of those issues, because there's a lot going on behind the scenes, probably in your body, in your emotions, which could need a bit of help and support, and supporting those will improve the skin, because of course what shows up on the skin is a reflection of what is going on in the rest of you, and that's the same for every single thing. But the thing about things on the skin is that the skin is the surface of us, all right? So things that appear on the skin are on the outside. Homeopaths quite like seeing things on the outside, because if they're on the outside, it means they're not on the inside. So we like things that are on the outside, and you need to be quite careful, because suppressing things that are on the outside, and I'm talking about pharmaceutical creams or medications, but there's also a possibility that it could happen with some homeopathic treatment as well. So if you suppress something that's on the surface, let me go back a little bit. So as far as a homeopath is concerned, your body heals from the inside out. So something that's on the inside is a deeper condition than something that's showing on the outside. So something that's on the outside, that's the reason we quite like it, because it's there. It means that it's on its way out. But it could equally well be pushed in with a sort of a cream or a medication that suppresses it. And if that happens, and it quite commonly happens with eczema medication, I'm not talking about homeopathic medication, but you quite often see people's children start off with eczema. The eczema gets better, and then they have asthma. Funny that, isn't it? So we like to ensure that that doesn't happen, which is why homeopaths like to sort out skin themselves. But having said that, there are always occasions, aren't there, where we get sore skin or dry skin, or this patch of just really irritated skin for no reason at all, that just appears. And if it just appears and doesn't last too long and then goes away again, then that's brilliant for an acute homeopathic remedy for you to treat yourself. If it's something that's been hanging around for a long time, I really would suggest that you, as I said, see a professional homeopath about it. So I'm going to talk about 4 remedies today, and I'm going to talk about 3 of them quite quickly, and the 4th one is just so brilliant that I'm going to spend longer on that, and looking at the different sorts of products that you can get, the different sorts of homeopathic products you can get that you can use to really support yourself. So I'm going to finish up talking about calendula, because calendula is just brilliant when it comes to skin. I am going to talk earlier on about calc carb, natrimure and silica. So that's 3 remedies that you may or may not be familiar with, So if you have a 18 remedy kit, only one of these is in the 18 remedy kit, and that's the silica. If you've got the 36 remedy kit, all 4 of them are in the 36 remedy kit. So I'll start off with the one that's in the 18 remedy kit. I'll start off with silica. And silica is really good for things that are embedded inside, helping to release them. So if you want a visual image to link to silica, I'd go with a volcano. You know, the way that, not one that's in the middle of erupting, but just before, you know, when there's this sort of ominous sense of it's getting bigger and bigger and it's swelling and getting more full. Because that's what happens with silica skin things. So they're really under the surface, they're painful, they're really inflamed. It's the sort of acne that's, you know, you get these really deep spots that are really painful. They're red, they are just red, there's no visible head on them. And if you do try to squeeze them, think you can I'll just get just the right angle. Nothing comes out, nothing. You might get a bit of plasma or something, but you'll get nothing satisfying out of it at all, because there's no blocked pore that's visible, there's no route for anything to get out. So silica will really help that sort of thing. So a boil or a sty on your eye lid, or a deep acne spot. But yeah, if you've got chronic acne, again we're talking about a homeopath's job here. So if you've got just one of those spots, or there's a boil that's come up, or a deep-seated abscess somewhere, maybe in your tooth you've got an abscess, it's something that's not pussy, it's just inflamed, sore and really painful. So if you take some silica, that can help either bring it to the surface or just help it go down. And sometimes one happens and sometimes the other happens, but I think either of them is better than just having a really painful lump. One of the other things that silica is very good for, thinking about things that are stuck under the surface, you know, if you get a splinter and it goes in, and it goes in so far that you just can't get it out again, you can try squeezing it, but it doesn't come out. And sometimes it goes a bit pussy round it, but again, it's quite deep-seated. Some silica will help push that out. So it's really, really useful to have, and that's why it's in the 18 remedy kit, because it's very, very useful for that sort of skin thing that's deep, painful and just sort of stuck there. And you may be this sort of person who tends to have skin that doesn't heal too easily, so you're not surprised that you've got these sorts of skin things now. Just take a couple of doses of silica and you'll notice a real difference in these really deep-seated things. So what personality type would you tend to have to associate with the silica? Because as I've said before, if you look at the emotions that people have or their personality types, it's often a really good confirmation or a clue that leads you to the right remedy. So one of the things about silica is that people tend to like to wear hats. It's a remedy that somebody's cold. They're just cold and they just can't get warm. Even if they go for a walk, they just get tired. They don't get warm. And they're quite likely to want to wear a hat most of the time. Indoors, outdoors, keep a hat on because it keeps their head warm because they're cold. And the warmth makes them feel better. So they're worse for being out in the cold. They're worse for doing too much physical exertion, because yeah, you go out to have a walk to get warm and doesn't it just tires them out. And sometimes thunderstorms as well. There's a bit of a sensitivity, so the worse before or during a thunderstorm. So little stamina, quite determined people, but quite sort of sensitive and mild. So it's an interesting combination of things there. It's also really a useful remedy for earaches. It can be good for headaches. It's really good for constipation that's just really, really, really stuck. So again, you know, it's like the boils and it's like the splinters. It's things that are really stuck, and you can get the constipation followed by diarrhea, because the diarrhea actually finds its way round the stuck stool which can't get out, and so that's the fresher poo comes out as diarrhea, and it's just that it hasn't sat for as long. That's why it's diarrhea. It's not an infection at all. So you may get an alternation of the two. Another really characteristic thing is sweaty feet. So people who need silica often sweat quite easily, and smelly, sweaty feet is a real characteristic of silica. So, deep things that need a route out of the body, silica's fantastic for. So that's one remedy for you. Now the next remedy we're going to look at is calc carb. And calc carb is a really key remedy in homeopathy, and it's really useful for babies. So think chubby, happy, reasonably happy, contented babies, and that's what we would say would be a sort of typical balanced calc carb. And in terms of the skin stuff, calc carb can really help babies, because you know they often get the cradle cap on their heads, which is this really thick, waxy crust that's just there, and you can pick it off, or you can rub oil in, or it's just quite persistent, and calc carb is one of the things that will help shift it. I don't know why cradle cap comes in the first place, but I presume it's just that there's too much sebum or something being exuded through the sweat glands on the top of the head, or maybe we don't rub the heads hard enough. I don't know, because they're such delicate things, babies. We don't want to go around rubbing their heads. But anyway, this thick crust, calc carb can really help loosen it, along with, they say, rubbing olive oil in or something helps as well. But calc carb is one of the things. And also eczema that's worse when a child is teething, because teething is one of those things that can cause huge problems for children if the teeth don't just come out nice and easily. If they take their time working their way to the surface, which they often do, the poor babies can get quite distressed, and it shows itself in different ways. And sometimes some babies get diarrhea, sometimes some get colic, sometimes some just don't want to be put down. Different remedies help all of these things, and I've talked about several of them before. But one I haven't talked about is calc carb, where it's associated with eczema flaring up on the skin. So the skin tends to be, seem not to have brilliant muscle tone, so it's a flabbier sort of skin tone. And yeah, eczema that comes when the child is teething, it's a pretty good indicator that calc carb will help. Another one is that there's a really sour sweat, which is particularly on the head and the back of the neck while they're sleeping. So when this happens, you can tell even as soon as you walk into the room, there's often this sort of sour smell around children that need calc carb, and it's their sweat. So if you notice that, and you've maybe got a bit of cradle cap, or you've got eczema that's worse for teething. Again, you've got children that don't like the cold. You've got children that find it hard to digest milk. So they either like milk or they really don't like milk, but they find it hard to digest anyway. So you're quite likely to get some regurgitation of the milk, which again is another sour smell, isn't it? So you're looking at this sort of sour profile, really, when it comes to calc carb. When they're a bit off balance, when they're nice and happy and contented, as I've said, this is the nice, happy, contented baby sort of picture. It can also be useful for breastfeeding mothers. So if you've not got enough milk, if you've got too much milk, calc carb can help with those things. It can help with ulcerated nipples. So anything that's more than just a soreness. We'll come to sore nipples later on. But anything that's a bit more than that, it's worth trying calc carb if you've got this basic kit. So it will help with the teething, it will help with glandy stuff, so tonsillitis, sore throats, colds, sort of things that are head and neck focused. You're going to get quite a lot of support. And if you happen to notice that you have a child that's sensitive to the full moon, there are a number of remedies that do have this sensitivity to the energy of the moon. And let's face it, if the moon's pull is strong enough to give us tides in things as big as oceans, it must have some sort of impact on our little human bodies, mustn't it? And the fluid in our bodies. So I remember having a child who could always tell there was a thunderstorm coming because they just started to feel unwell. And it was the same with full moon as well. So calc carb was actually a remedy that they did really, really well on. It was a huge support for all of those things. So you're looking at somebody again, so a bit like silica, who's worse if they try to do too much thinking or too much physical effort, worse for the cold, worse for the damp, worse for drinking milk, worse for the full moon, better for dry weather and warmth. Now this is an interesting one, better when slightly constipated. I have no idea why. But that's the sort of thing that you might notice, isn't it, as a mum? You think, well, they haven't done a poo recently. Well, but they seem quite happy. Calc carb, good one to go for. So you've got quite a sort of cheery baby. They're maybe quite anxious and timid inside, hiding the fears and the anxieties. The sort of child who sits and sticks at something. So if they start building the tower of the blocks or whatever, they'll stick with it and they won't want to be moved from it if they're in the middle of doing it, because they'll want to finish it and they'll want to do it in the order that they're doing it in, and they won't want to be hurried because they've got their method and they're quite happy with it. So that does fit the picture of quite a lot of babies, doesn't it? Kelp carb, brilliant remedy for babies, brilliant remedy for babies' skin stuff. Oh, and yeah, if they start wanting to eat something that isn't food, and I know babies do this a lot, but that's another indicator for kelp carb. If they are particularly wanting to chew things that aren't food. So there you go. Sweaty, sour smelling, and generally quite placid and happy, as long as they're able to just do their own thing, and they're not upset by teething, by being hurried, by the full moon, or what else did I say? Full moon, thunderstorms. So that's kelp carb and silica. Quite similar in a sort of way, aren't they? And they both tend to have issues with digestion and nutrition and absorption underlying them, those two remedies. So that's why you've sort of got festery things going on, or things not healing very well, or things hanging around, like your cradle cap, instead of them just being easily brushed away. Now, another remedy I want to look at is natrum mur. I usually call it nat mur, and it's made from sea salt. So natrum is sodium and mur is chloride, so salt, sodium chloride. And this is really good if your skin suddenly gets dry. So particularly sort of thinking arms or legs, and it can happen. You sort of think, why is that all dry? Why is that just a bit itchy and a bit not quite right? And sometimes it happens when the skin on your face doesn't get dry as well. So it's just the bits on your body. And maybe the skin on your face is a bit oily. And dry lips is a really common thing for nat mur. It's a really good cold sore remedy. So I'm again thinking lips, and particularly if there's a cut down the middle of the lip, the middle of the bottom lip. You know how you smile and sometimes you get that split right down the middle, which then you have to try and avoid smiling until it's joined itself up again. Nat mur is a really good remedy for that, a really good remedy for dry lips, and a good remedy for this dry skin that just appears. So that dry skin goes with feeling really thirsty and liking salty food as opposed to liking sweet food. Kelp carb, it's more sweet food. And there may be a nose running like a tap at the same time, or there may be a blocked nose at the same time. You can't quite tell, it can be one or the other. Much better for being outside, for bathing in cool water. You know, some people really like swimming in a cold sea, or like what's it called? Swimming in lakes and rivers. So in the really cold water, that's quite a good sign. If it makes you feel so much better, and you've got this dry flaky skin or the dry lips, that nat mur is going to be a good remedy for you to try. You may find that being at the seaside makes you feel much better, or you may find that being at the seaside makes you feel much worse. Again, it's one of those things that can go either way. So if your skin gets dry when you're at the seaside, or you have dry skin which gets better when you're at the seaside, that's a good sign that nat mur would be a helpful one for there. Tends to be worse in the morning, sort of 9 till 11 a.m, so before coffee time, and then it subsides, feels a bit better after that. Probably worse for being in the sunlight and the heat of the sun. So you like being outside but not necessarily in the heat. And again, it can be that you'd rather be left on your own, and talking doesn't really help. Reading and writing might be a bit much effort for you. So what's the emotional picture that goes with this? Well, it could be that the symptoms started just after some sort of upset, because nat mur is a really, really good remedy for suppressed grief. So that's grief where the person hasn't cried, they've just got a stiff upper lip and kept all their feelings inside, and that's some people's really preferred way of doing things. So if you recognise all of these things and think, yep, that's me, I'm like that all the time, then go and see a professional homeopath, please, and then it could really make a difference to you. Doing it with one of the home kits, I would suggest, if this is just, my lips are suddenly dry, I never have dry lips, why has this happened, and they've cracked down the middle, that's the sort of thing that you use the kit at home to do it yourself. So seeming sad, moody, self-contained, maybe something's happened, there's been some, some sort of emotional upset. It could be moving house, or it could be losing a pet, or it could be losing a family member or a close friend. Any of these things could be enough to trigger one of these episodes. And of course, being sad is a perfectly normal state of affairs, and it's a very healthy state of affairs when something sad's happened. So we don't want to get rid of those feelings of sadness necessarily, but we want to support people through it so that they don't feel that they're left entirely on their own to struggle. They feel a bit more supported with their feelings. So what else can nat mur help with? Well, it's a very good cold remedy, particularly if it fits that nose running like a tap type of picture. It's a good hay fever remedy. Again, if it's hay fever that fits that nose running like a tap, maybe lots of sneezing, maybe worse when you're outside in the sun, maybe worse at the seaside or better at the seaside, that sort of thing. It's a really good headache remedy, sort of migraine type of headache. Good for indigestion, can be linked to sort of quite acid foods. Really good constipation remedy, and as I mentioned before, it's a really good cold sore remedy. So lots going on there, but it is a good one to try. And yeah, dry lips may be the thing that you would really want to give that a go for. Or maybe, as I say, your arms suddenly feel really dry, or your legs suddenly feel really dry and they're just a bit irritated and slightly itchy. Give it a go. So that's the 3 remedies which are worth giving a go if you really recognise those pictures and think, yep, that's really going to help. So with the Natmure, that would be probably the dry lips, particularly with a crack down the middle. Lots of thirst to go with it. With the silica, it's likely to be a splinter that's really deeply embedded, or a boil, or a tooth abscess, or a really deep acne spot, but it's a one-off rather than a really chronic problem. So those sorts of things that need help finding their way out from deep under the skin to the surface, or maybe a sty as well. And calc carb, again, you're thinking babies really there, and sour smelling babies with really sweaty heads, cradle cap that's quite persistent, eczema when children are teething, and the children also, as well as having this sour smelling sweat, particularly when they're asleep, they're a bit better when they're constipated, which is really quite unusual, because it usually makes people really uncomfortable and bad-tempered and irritable. So that's quite a handy one to hang on to there. So there's those 3 remedies, and I would take those as remedies. So I'm going to talk now about the best way to take these acute remedies. So you've got your little vial of the pills, and you're not going to treat it as if it's paracetamol or something. Put it in your mouth, swallow it back with some water, because you want to keep it in your mouth while it dissolves so that it can get into the blood more easily, because what you're looking at there is the energy from the remedy getting into your bloodstream so that it can support your body with some energy that it's missing. So when you've recognised these symptoms that match the remedies, you've decided what remedy you're going to take, get hold of it, get one of the pills. You can just tip it into the lid of the little pot really easily, and then tip it into your mouth. Either put it under your tongue, crunch it up, or suck it, because as I've said, you want it to stay in your mouth so that the energy can get into your body. You don't want to swig it down with water, because then you've just lost it. It'll just get mixed up with everything else in your stomach. And you do that as soon as you can after you've noticed the symptoms starting. So you don't wait and wait and wait and wait and wait until it gets so bad that you can't stand it anymore. And it may seem like you're doing the right thing to let your body do its stuff, but if you're already being irritated by something, if it's starting to annoy you or feel really uncomfortable, it's much better homeopathically to nip it in the bud as soon as you can, and you'll get a better result. So you take a remedy as soon as you can. Now that's going to last you maybe only a couple of minutes, maybe 10 minutes, but it was not going to last you too long, because the energy in that remedy is needed by your body. You've got the symptoms because you've got an imbalance. You're missing some, your body's a bit low on a particular type of energy, and it's letting you know that by giving you these symptoms. So what you want to do is replace that energy using the remedy. And there's only a certain amount of energy in that remedy. When your body's used it up, then your symptoms will come back again. And it doesn't mean that the remedy doesn't work. it means that your body has used up that one pill of remedy, and your body needs another one. So you take another pill as soon as the symptoms come back, and then the symptoms will die down again, and they will stay died down for longer this time. They'll stay died down for maybe, if you just got 2 minutes relief last time, you'll get more like 10 minutes this time. And then the symptoms will come back again, and then you'll think, oh, it hasn't worked. I really thought I'd got it this time. It has worked. Your body's used up the energy. You need another remedy to replenish the energy stores again. So you take a third dose, and you'll get more relief this time. So if you just got 10 minutes last time, you'll probably get half an hour this time. Or if you've had a bit more relief, so if the first dose gave you 10 minutes relief and the second one will have given you a bit longer, it will give you 30 minutes, and you may get, say, about an hour and a half from the third one. So you'll get more each time, depending on how strong your symptoms are really, and how depleted your body is. So when the symptoms come back again, that's when you take your third dose, and then the symptoms will go away for longer. And after you've had 3 doses, you're going to get symptom relief that lasts for a reasonable length of time. So it always says on the bottle, take every couple of hours. And I think once you've done this priming, first, second, third dose, then every couple of hours works quite well. If you've had the longer period of time, you know, if you've got 10 minutes, half an hour, 90 minutes relief, you might find that 3 times a day is all you need. So you're keeping on top of the symptoms, having given your body that sort of real boost with the 3 doses close together to start off with at the beginning. And I found that's a really effective way of doing things, and I've taught this technique to lots of people now and had very, very positive feedback about it. So I would definitely recommend trying it that way, even though it's not what it's going to say on the bottle. It's going to just say regular doses spaced out. So that's what I would do for those 3. And as I've said, for those 3, you're talking about acute conditions there. You're talking about things that are first aid conditions that have just cropped up, that are bothering you, that you'd like to get rid of. Things that you've had for months, or someone in your family has had for months, or something that you've had for a short period of time, but you had it as well a couple of weeks earlier, and then a couple of weeks earlier than that you had the same thing, and you've had it sort of coming back on and off for a substantial period of time. I would say go and see a professional homeopath, because that suggests a much deeper imbalance, and you could do with some help getting on top of that. And it's likely to need maybe more than one remedy, or a bit more support for your body to help get on top of those symptoms. So that leaves us with the remedy that I have been really applauding and bigging up for skin issues, and that is calendula. And calendula are pot marigolds, the English marigolds that you get, not the little French marigolds, but the English marigolds that look like lovely little suns in your garden. Calendula is the most soothing remedy that there is, and it's absolutely fantastic for rough skin, for skin that's just got injured and has got a bit tight. It keeps the skin supple so that it doesn't crack, and it supports healthy healing. So I actually, oh, it's healed up so well with this. Oh, I can't do this. Yes, I can. There. That is where I was doing some gardening and I got a bit carried away and I got a blister, and I kept on and kept on and kept on digging out my compost bin, and by the time I stopped and had a look, the top of the blister had ripped itself off. It was hanging on by a thread, and I'd got nothing there but a bare, sore, red, very red patch of skin, and it was very uncomfortable and it got really tight. So that is an ideal time to put calendula on something, and you can either take it as a pill, and you can take it as a pill and it's brilliant, and then it's really supporting from the inside as well. And say for example after childbirth, which can be quite a traumatic time for the woman's body, I would definitely take calendula internally as well as using it externally. And how do we use it externally? Well, there are some absolutely fantastic creams that you can get and tinctures which use calendula, and you can use those just on the surface, just to soothe and calm down any issues that you've got. So it's very good for superficial burns, it's very good for burst blisters, as I've said, because I did this just a couple of days ago, and as you can see I can hardly see it anymore. But when I first put the calendula on, I used the tincture. I used a couple of drops in some cool boiled water, and then used some cotton wool just to help dab and clean the wound, help wash away any bits of compost that were flying around, and then I let it dry. And when it dried, you know, when skin is injured, it sort of tightens up a bit, particularly skin that's wasn't meant to be on the surface yet, because it hasn't quite developed itself properly. So it tightened up so much that I actually couldn't open my hand flat very easily. I was worried that it was completely going to crack and bleed when I did that. So I put some calendula cream on. So you can get calendula tincture, which is useful for cleaning wounds. You can get calendula creams, which are really good for helping keep the skin supple, helping keep it clean and clear of infection, and helping the skin heal up really nice and quickly. So I've been very impressed with how quickly the skin has healed, and the only bit that you can see now is where it's actually joins onto a crease, where there's a crease in my hand, and so that needs to learn to bend. So I don't want that healing up too quickly and her healing too tight. It needs to be able to flex so that I've got the normal amount of movement back once it's healed over. But I have no doubt that it will. So you can get vegan creams which have no clearly no animal ingredients in. They tend to be quite light creams, and the creams that Helios make are vegan creams, I'm pretty sure. I tried that and I got relief for such a short period of time. You know, I've just said, if it comes back, if the pain comes back, don't assume it didn't work. You've just used up the remedy. You need to reapply. You need to take another one. Well, I was getting a bit tired of reapplying this cream because I had other things that I wanted to do. But I did know that I was getting the relief from it, and then it stopped because I was using up the amount of calendula that was in the tiny amount of cream I needed on this very tiny wound. So I switched to a thicker cream, which was a Weleda cream, and it was called Hypericum and Calendula Wound Balm, I think. Healing balm, one or the other, but it's definitely a balm. And that is not vegan because it's got beeswax in and it's got lanolin as well as olive oil and other emollients, but it's a much thicker cream, so it gives you a more sort of satisfying layer that stays put and helps heal the wound, as well as the having calendula in it. But there are a lot of other creams, a really fantastic range, that have calendula in for its soothing, healing properties, and another remedy as well. So the one that I held up just now is, this is a Helios homeopathy cream, and this has got Graphites in, which is a really good eczema remedy. Graphites and calendula. And it calms weepy, oozy eczema. I don't get eczema, but I did once. I know. Who knows? I had a patch that just appeared behind my knee, and it weeped and it oozed this sort of honey liquid, which fits the Graphites picture really well. So I put some Graphites and calendula cream on, and it really helped calm that down. So what you're doing with the cream is you're really calming down the symptoms, and you may not get the healing, but you might, but you'll definitely get the soothing, and it's a really good place to start when you're doing things yourself with the homeopathy. So you've got the Graphites and calendula cream. There's also a cream which has got Urtica urens, which is made from nettles. So that's very good for sort of blistery, stingy things. So if you've got calendula, Urtica urens, Ainsworth's is another homeopathic pharmacy. They do calendula, Urtica urens and Hypericum all in one cream, which is going to be really soothing for things like nettle rashes or burns or anything that's you've got a sort of prickly, stingy feeling to it. The Helios one is just calendula and Urtica urens, and so minor burns, either of those would be fantastic for it. And then there's a number of creams that are made by other companies. There's Hope's Relief Cream, which you can get quite widely in health food shops. It's and there's a whole range of products. It provides fantastic relief for eczema, for other skin conditions, and calendula is one of its key ingredients. I've had such fantastic feedback from a lot of clients who've used that one. There's a cream called 7 Cream, which was developed by a homeopath, and one of the key ingredients of that is also calendula. It's got other things in it like tea tree and manuka honey and all these other lovely calming and antiseptic compounds in it, but calendula is one of the key things. 7 cream again you can get through Helios Pharmacy and probably other places as well. And Weleda, I've mentioned Weleda before with their Hypericum and Calendula balm. They do a range of baby products which all have calendula in, organic calendula, and I think it's sunflower oil. So their baby oil has literally just got those 2 ingredients, but they do a lotion and they do a balm and a nappy cream and a do-da-da-da-da, and they've all got calendula in. So they're actually yellow coloured, very like a marigold colour. It's a bit of a clue. So if your baby has got slightly rough skin, they often get chapped cheeks from sitting in buckies being pushed around. Calendula, the Weleda calendula range for babies, fantastic for soothing that. I used to use calendula tincture. In fact, I think I used Hypericum and calendula tincture in my children's baths when they were little. I used to call them magic drops, and I just used to put 4 or 5 drops in a whole bath's worth of water. And you know how young children at the end of the day have just got these little scrapes and these little cuts, and they're nothing, but they've just knocked themselves on things and they've just been, having a good time, and it's just one of those things that happens. The magic drops just meant that by the next morning these things had just healed up and almost disappeared completely without trace. So calendula is really very useful and very calming and very healing promoting, but do remember to dilute the tincture down. If you use it neat, there is a lot of alcohol in there and it will be extremely painful, because the alcohol will really make your skin sting. You just need a tiny, tiny, tiny bit, a couple of drops in a cup of water, and that's all you'll need. If I was using 4 or 5 drops in a bath full of water, a little goes a long way. So that's that's it for the 4 remedies. What else can we use the calendula for? Well, I have just noticed I've put down here a mouthwash after dental work. Again, a couple of drops in some cool boiled water will just help promote the healing in the skin, make sure that it's healthy, help keep it clean. Mouthwashes are brilliant for that. Breastfeeding nipples, again, just use the tincture, couple of drops diluted in water, just to soothe them. Or you can put a cream on, but you might want to wash it off before you have your next feed. Not that it will cause any harm, but it might not taste very nice for your baby. Who knows? They're more interested in the milk than the calendula. You don't want to put them off, do you? So, sore nipples, you've got the calendula to use on the outside. You can take calendula internally as well if you want to really get on top of those sore nipples. If it's getting a bit worse than sore, if you're just thinking, I really think I need to go and get this seen to, try some calc carb and see if you can nip that in the bud. And then you've got all the skin things, and I'm not going to go through them all again. So first aid uses, we're looking at calming down skin, soothing the skin, and doing something if you've got an acute outbreak of something that you haven't had before. You can make a real difference to a boil or a splinter or any of those things that are deeply embedded. Tooth abscess, the silica will help bring it to the surface. Dry chapped lips, the Napmu would be really useful for that, and could be for dry skin as well. And then you've got the kelp cover, the cradle cap. I said I wasn't going to go through it all, and I just have. So isn't that wonderful? You've got all of those fantastic remedies to support your skin and help you feel more comfortable, soothe it, help bring you back into balance and help it heal. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you think, oh, actually, do you know, my family does a lot of those skin things, all of those remedies sound useful, as ever, I have got a little kit from Skin Stuff, containing the 4 remedies that I've talked about today. If you think it would be useful to have a skin box that you can keep in a dedicated place, then that's going to be available from my website. It's not been uploaded yet, and as well as the remedies in the kit, you will get a copy of all of the 4 remedies that I've talked about on a sheet like this, with a copy of the instructions if you want a reminder about how to take the remedies acutely, most effectively, and when to move on to getting some professional help if you need some. Hello Jackie, glad that that's been helpful for you. Is there anything quickly that you want to ask? Right, well, I'm going to say goodbye and wishing you success with your homeopathic experimenting, and you won't do yourself any harm by trying these things out, and you could give yourself a lot of relief. So I hope that's been really helpful for you, and I will be uploading this to my YouTube channel, and you can look at it again at your leisure. Glad it's covered what you want, Jackie. Bye for now.